So we're back for another edition of Percussion Discussion, and I'm really thrilled to welcome today's guest, Mr. Steve Barney. Thanks for doing this, Steve.
Matty, thank you so much, mate. It's good to see you.
Likewise. It's been a long time since I've seen you in person. A long way back in a band called Bullyrag from Liverpool. So
okay. Wow.
we'll get there though. So first of all,
yeah,
I'm going to ask where did it all begin for you?
Wowzers. Okay, so my sort of earliest memory really is kind of like being at home with my dad's record collection, really, and just being in and around and absorbing my dad's love of music. And I guess, you know, a place that I always kind of always come back to because it was so special and poignant for me was my dad and my uncle Roger took me to see Genesis when they came to Great Yarmouth, of all places.
Amazing.
I was 9, and so this was in 1980, and Genesis came through. They did a big theatre tour of the UK, and they played in Great Yarmouth as part of the Duke tour. So that was I remember so vividly, even though I was so young, just to basically see Phil and Chester Thompson.
Amazing.
You know, just the power of, you know, the concert and the lights and the you know, just being in and amongst, you know, like an audience drinking beer and just getting off on rock music. So that was really special for me.
A great album as well.
Oh, mate, still to this day, I love Duke. I think it's a phenomenal record. And
definitely.
I never hide my love for Phil. You know, I mean, it's just such a phenomenal drummer, and it's probably been, apart from my dad, you know, as a supporter of me and my drumming, that Phil Collins has definitely been my biggest influence, I'd say. You know.
Amazing stuff. So, did you have lessons in school, or did you seek lessons elsewhere?
You know what? My dad obviously noticing and encouraging my obvious interest in drumming. You know, I was playing on biscuit. I was sort of doing the stereotypical biscuit tin thing around the house until I broke all the biscuit tins. So my dad got me a little kind of, you know, a basic drum kit to set off with. And we got lessons locally with a drummer called Slim Harris. His name's John Harris, but everyone called him Slim Harris. And London guy had moved to Norfolk. So I had a lot of lessons with Slim. Spent felt like the first year with him, kind of just on a practice pad. I think he initially got me to kind of get on the kit and say, just play me what you kind of can do. So like most kind of 9-10-year-olds, I went absolutely mental on this kit. Just gave it everything. And he went, okay, that's great. This is a snare drum. We're going to be here for a year. I was like, and I've spoken about this in other interviews and stuff that I've done. And with the greatest respect to Slim or any drum teacher, I didn't find it the most easy thing to get under my kind of my head and my hands, you know, well, I say my hands. I could basically absorb and visualize and understand what he was teaching me, but the reading thing was not something that came natural sort of to me. And I ended up, and still to this day, can't read. But it was very, very helpful, you know, the time I spent with Slim and what he showed me in rudiments and stuff. I just found my own way to navigate what he was kind of showing me with a notation, but actually I was looking at his hands and not at the charts, you know. So I feel a bit of a blagger in that respect. I don't mean a blagger as a drummer, but in the reading sense. But it's not got in the way of me working and
absolutely
becoming a drummer. You know,
it's not the be all and end all. It's a helpful tool, a useful tool, but. You know, I mean, gosh, I know so many drummers who don't read and have no interest in that and have never needed to. So,
yeah,
you know, and
I absolutely respect people that can read, and of course, I wish I could. And it's just for some reason that's just not something that I felt was my calling. And but I would definitely encourage young and up and coming drummers that you know, or any age, you know, to read. I think it's an important tool, as you say. But
and I think hearing this for lots of people who'll be watching this will kind of take refuge and go, oh, he's not a reader. That's good. Yeah, because I think people easily
relax.
Yeah. It's not the end of the world by any means, is it? It's you know, if you've got ears.
Well, that's the thing. I think, fortunately, whatever you want to call it, that I just had a natural ability for understanding stuff. Not everything, you know, not every style of music and every type of drumming, but I had a natural ability and love for music, which I'm so grateful that I've got that, you know. I mean, and that came, like I said, from an early age. And my dad just took me to concerts, and I watched many local drummers, you know, in Norwich and Norfolk, where I kind of grew up. And yeah, I just used to see so many kind of great local drummers. There was a great guy called Barry Wortley, who played in a cabaret band called Fresh, who was phenomenal. I probably saw Barry more than any local drummer playing, and I loved what he was doing and still does. And, you know, there's a guy called Colin Brady, who was a great local drummer, a great band called Lee Vasey, like the Lee Vasey Big Band. And they were kind of like Norwich's answer to sort of Tara Para. They had like a brass section and, you know, great. So I guess the bottom line of what I'm rambling, but I guess I was just around live music.
Yeah.
And there was no passwords, there was no Wi-Fi. It was just me, my mum and dad going out most Sundays, because that's when the live things that we used to see. And just, you know, so lucky to have support from my mum and dad, you know what I mean, to take me to see these great plays, you know.
Oh, amazing. So you at this age, you were, I don't know, you know, we started having the lessons. You say you were about 19, so you quite late.
No. God, no, I was 10 when I was having lessons.
Sorry, I thought you said you were like 19, nine-year-old. All right, okay, I thought you said 19.
Yeah, no, I was 9 when I saw Genesis, right. And then I probably had lessons with Slim from about 10 years old to 13, 14, you know.
Gotcha. I was thinking, oh, he's an old starter there. So when did the first band come about for you then? So
I was in kind of cabaret, sort of local cabaret kind of bands. I was on the sort of Norfolk circuit, you know, like doing the holiday camps when I was younger. So there was a band called Starburst that I was in, you know, with 2 girls, a great keyboard player and a singer. And there was a band called Capricorn, you know, lots of different kind of show bands. I think looking back on it, I just wanted to play as much as possible, because I think it can be, and obviously is important to play on your own.
Yeah.
And obviously when I was young, which is many, many years ago, as we can see, this is white. This is life. No, I was going to say, as much as it is great to play in your bedroom, and you know, I didn't have YouTube or stuff like that to look on, so I just got out there and played as much as possible. So I guess looking back on it, with the encouragement of my parents and being in these young kind of cabaret bands, that it gave me an early start in making mistakes, you know, as well as I guess finding my confidence with playing in front of an audience and stuff. You know, I did a talent show at the Theatre Royal in Norwich when I was 10. I think I did like a drum solo there, you know, and just I guess just kind of getting out there and playing, mate. So I was in bands in and around Norwich and Norfolk from the age of kind of 12 until I left Norwich. You know, I left Norwich in 1994.
Yeah, because well, we spoke on the phone the other day, and you said, "Have you seen the film about the 3 drummers?" And I said I couldn't find the link. I've since shared it and I've watched it. And were you growing up with the guys in the film at that time, at that age? Were you friends then?
So me, Luke Bullen, and Nathan Curran, we were living in sort of villages not far from each other, and I met. So it's a really nice story, actually. I met Luke because my dad was kind enough to sort of be upgrading me with a drum kit from, I think I had a Premier Club kit with single-headed toms, you know, like Phil. And I wanted to get a Pearl Export, so we put in the local newspaper, and we put the Premier Club for sale. Got a phone call from a guy who said he wanted to buy a drum kit for his dad, and that happened to be Luke Bullen's father.
Right. Okay.
So that's how I met Luke, because he came round with his dad and bought the kit, and then obviously being kind of from a small kind of area, we were kind of aware of each other. So I was aware of Luke being in bands. Nathan I met when I went in for this national drumming competition by a guy called Tony Kennelly, who's from Sheffield. You might be aware of Tony. Yeah. It was called Drummers Alliance, and that was in 1988. And I and Nathan went in for the Norfolk kind of the Norfolk heat, and I won I think it was the 18s and over, or the 16s and over, and Nathan won the one below, and then we both went to London to the final. So I met Nathan, and then we sort of became friends after that, you know. All
within like a few miles of each other. That's mad. It's mad. And you've all gone on to do like massive stuff, haven't you? You know,
we have, and that is a really. I'm so happy for them. guys, you know what I mean? And the fact that we're all still friends, and I've watched them kind of grow and play, like you say, for these great artists. And then when Luke Bullen got in touch with me and Nathan a couple of years ago to say, should we put a short kind of film together about it? It just seemed a really nice thing to do. And I'm really glad you enjoyed it, you know.
Brilliant, really.
It was a great thing to do.
Yeah, it's a lovely story, as you said, unusual, but fantastic all the same. So we got to 1994, and then I think I know where you're going to go next, but over to you.
Well, I was kind of getting, you know, as much as I loved Norwich, you know, and being at home there, but I just felt, for whatever reason, I just felt a real need to kind of, in order to grow, for whatever reason, I felt I needed to move away. And I was kind of answering ads for bands in the NME and the Melody Maker. And while I thought London was going to be my calling, I ended up getting an audition with a band from Liverpool called Bullyrag. And I came up here in '94, and and I basically got the audition and moved up. Within a 2-week period of giving up my job, I was working in a local clothes shop called Hatters in Norwich, and basically, I just basically kind of jumped off the edge of a cliff. I mean, and that sounds a bit dramatic, but I think we all in life like stability and, you know, knowing where we're going and a regular income. And I think kind of making a leap of faith and leaving Norwich and my family, and, you know, felt that a really, really big thing. And it was.
Yes, I mean, it's one thing sort of giving up a job and going, but moving away from family, that must be...
But my calling, as corny as it sounds, my calling to want to be a professional drummer was far greater. I mean, not far greater than my love of my family. That's silly to even mean. But, you know, I had a massive passion to do it. And thankfully, which is just a wonderful thing, I've had my mum and dad's kind of support and blessing to do it, which, you know, feels great to have their approval. So I moved up here in '94 and joined Bullyrag, which is a really, really robust, heavy kind of mishmash of styles.
That Rage Against the Machine, I always think when every time I saw you, you know, I was like,
It definitely had the energy of a band like that, but it had more reggae and hip hop, and we tried to incorporate drum and bass and flamenco. The guys were phenomenal musicians, and I spent the next 6 years in that band. It didn't maybe reach the potential as it could have done, but that, you know, that's been and gone. And I look fondly as the work we did, and the one album we made was a strong piece of work. And for whatever reason, it didn't do maybe what it could have done, but it definitely helped me mature as a musician. I think, and as a person, because they were strong Scouse characters, and I just moved up from Norwich, you know what I mean? Kind of, I'm not saying I'm kind of the opposite now, but joining that band was a revelation for me. And, but yeah, so I was in that band between '94 to 2000 when we broke up, you know.
So where'd you go from there? Did you settle down in Liverpool at this time, or did you...
Yeah, well, I did. I mean, apart from the initial panic of the band breaking up, you know, and God, what are we going to do? And I was devastated that we broke up, because we'd put a lot of time and energy into it, but I felt like I couldn't foresee a future in being another band. I kind of, for me, I felt like I wanted to try and go freelance.
Be a sideman rather than a band member.
Yes, yeah, I did. I didn't know how to go about it. If you've never done something before, where do you start? So I guess where I started then, which was in 2000, was picking up the phone or going to see people and just letting them know that I was looking for work. And by chance, and a previous manager of Bullyrag, a guy called Martin O'Shea, had moved on and was managing a girl pop group called Atomic Kitten, who were Liverpool based. And he was managing them, and, you know, they were far kind of like, couldn't be further musically away from what I'd just been doing. But I was interested in the session thing, and I reached out and I said to Martin, if you ever do anything with the girls live, I'd love an opportunity to play with them. And he was like, I thought you would kind of do the rock thing. I said, well, that was that. I just need an opportunity, you know. So thankfully he gave me that opportunity, and we did a Top of the Pops live thing, I guess as a test kind of thing, and it went really well. And they ended up being at #1 with a song called Whole Again for about 3 or 4 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, I know the song, yeah.
And after that, or during that time, he brought in a musical director, a guy called Mike Stevens, who unbeknownst to me, was a really big name in kind of musical directing, and he'd done Take That, and lots and lots of stuff in the past, you know, loads of stuff, but I wasn't aware of him. But Martin brought him up, and I now look back on it, knowing it was quite a weird situation, because Mike or any MD would tend to book people they know and that they've worked with before. But Martin said, you know, listen, try kind of this local drummer out, Steve, and there was a local bass player called Pemo and a keyboard player called Kieran. We were all kind of Liverpool guys. And about 3 or 4 guys from London came to Liverpool, and we rehearsed up here, which is quite strange, really, because not that people don't work in Liverpool, of course, there's loads of bands and stuff here. But session-wise, everything is London-based, really, as far as rehearsal. So we met Mike, and it went really well. And, you know, that I didn't realise it at the time, but that was definitely a golden ticket. Not only did I get on, and do get on really well with Mike as a friend, he became someone who really did look out for me and kindly put a lot of really great artists and gigs my way, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you need to be seen with a name, don't you, just to progress. And
you just need an opportunity to kind of show what you can do, you know.
Absolutely. So after then, what came after that?
So I did the Atomic Kitten tour, which I really enjoyed. It kind of showed that I could be comfortable with a click and within a pop situation.
Yeah.
And at the very end of that tour, you know, I'd kind of like, during the time of reaching out to people when Bullyrag broke up, one of the guys I reached out to, well, actually a few guys, but there was 2 guys, Andy Wright, the producer, and Al Stone. And Andy called me just out of the blue after I'd sort of phoned him maybe a year before, saying I was looking for like session work. Phoned me out of the blue, said, Steve, I've got a session which I think you might be ideal for. I said, oh, great, Andy, thanks, you know, thanks for the opportunity. He said, yeah, it's Jeff Beck. I was like, couldn't believe it. I said, hang on, you got the right Steve? He was like, yeah, definitely. And, you know, like anyone, I'm sure your viewers and people will be aware that Jeff is probably, if not one of the greatest guitar players in the world. You know,
and he's had some serious heavyweight drummers in the past as well.
Exactly. Hence we made the right phone call there, Andy.
Colliutas, Ozzy, all sorts of people win in that band.
Yeah, exactly. All kind of, many of them my heroes, you know.
Bernard Purdy.
So, yes.
Yeah.
So many. So Andy says, listen, like, we're doing an album which is a lot more of a modern, sort of heavy kind of grooves, you know, sort of funky heavyweight, almost kind of Chemical Brothers, hip hop, rock kind of stuff. And he knew what I could do for Bullyrag, so I guess he thought I'd be the right type of thing. I don't think Jeff wanted say like a jazz fusion drummer for this particular album. So he called me, and I ended up going down to London to Metropolis Studios, and yeah, I play on about 7 or 8 tracks on that album. Meet Jeff, get on like a house on fire. We have a great time. I play drums on this album, and it's a major thing for me. And while I'm in the studio, you know, if that wasn't special enough, one morning Jeff comes in and says, hey Steve, I've just had a phone call from a promoter who's putting on 3 shows at the Royal Festival Hall to celebrate my career. I said, wow, amazing, Jeff, you know, well done. I'd love to come and see that, you know, that's what a gig. And he said, no, I'd like you to be the drummer. I'd like you to be the house drummer, because it's going to be like a 3-day event with different guests, and I think you'd be, you know, I said, I'd love to do it. In my mind, I was like, oh my God, what have I taken on here? But fast forwards kind of to sort of doing that gig, and it was a phenomenal experience. I did it, you know, and you know, you mentioned Terry Bozzio. Terry was one of the special guests. Right. So for me, kind of like being nervous about particular really extreme fusion, odd time stuff, Terry took the weight off me by doing that. And it was also the Guitar Shop trio ended up reforming, so I could just leave the stage and Terry did his thing, and it was phenomenal. But I think looking back on that, I mean, Terry was really supportive to me. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to play myself down. I can play drums, and I'm confident within what I can do, but Jeff Beck was a whole different level. So as you can understand, just coming from being in a band situation to Atomic Kitten to Jeff Beck was quite
a leap, isn't it?
They were leaps, you know, but it just shows that if you're lucky enough in life to be given an opportunity that people will, you know, you can raise your game, you know.
You've got to deliver the goods, though, haven't you? You can't.
Have.
You can't just he's a name. We'll book. You've got to deliver, haven't you?
Yeah.
Studio and live.
No, exactly. So, but it was a phenomenal experience, Matt. You know, I sat there. It was like, you know, it was like kind of the best 3 nights anyone could almost witness there.
So who else? What guests were on that then? Was there all sorts of?
Yeah, there was. So there was so like the house band was Jennifer Batten, who played for Michael Jackson.
Okay.
You know, who's phenomenal. And Tony Hymas was on keys. Randy Hunt Taylor on bass, and Jeff. So that was the main core of the house band. Then the special guest was Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, John McLaughlin from the Man of Vishnu Orchestra, Imogen Heap, who I'm sure you're aware of now, Paul Rodgers from Free and Bad Company, the White Stripes, but I left the stage and she played drums, which was great. Jimmy Hall, a great singer from Nashville, from this band called Wet Willie. And I'm sure there were some others that I've forgotten about. But I mean, just those names alone. You know?
You were just pinching yourself, weren't you? Going, is this real?
I was. And to play with Roger, which was really amazing. Roger Waters. And me and Terry stayed on together for those particular songs.
Did you do a Floyd number or?
And no, we did two of his own things called "What God Wants," which is a really great track that Jeff had played on his album.
Right. Okay. Makes sense.
So yeah, we did that. But it was a great experience, mate. And I mean, we didn't really have the biggest guest list, but like we did have a few guests each night, and I obviously invited my parents, which is just a joy to have my mum and dad.
Oh, I can imagine.
But one of the people I invited as my guest was Mike Stevens, the MD that I spoke about. Now, yes, you know, it's kind of an obvious networking thing to do, but I really wanted Mike, after seeing me with Atomic Kitten, I wanted to see him kind of, you know, in this opportunity that I was doing with Jeff Beck. And so Mike came down and, he was really super kind and supportive, saying that I'd done a great job, which meant, which really meant a lot to me.
Absolutely.
And about 6 months after that, Mike calls me and says, "Hey mate, I've got a gig coming up, which I think I'd really like you to do, and I think it'd be great for us." I said, "Oh, great. Who's that?" And he said, "Annie Lennox from the Eurythmics." I was like, "Wow." So that was the next phase after Jeff Beck.
So they all rolled together quite nicely, really, then.
When I'm talking in an interview like this, yes. The truth is, I mean, obviously we're condensing.
Yeah, of course.
I'm condensing a 20-year freelance career here, and there is. I don't want to freak any people who are aspiring out to do it. That this all just literally goes one to the other. Obviously, there's definitely some of this going on.
Resting periods.
Resting periods, yes. But I mean, I'd say there was a particular wave that I was riding in the beginning of what I was hearing here, and yeah, it wasn't long after Jeff that I did the Annie Lennox tour, which was again just a wonderful experience, mate. You know, a great band, phenomenal singer and songs.
She comes over really nice as well. She seems nice. Yeah, totally
emotive, and in the moment when she sings, and many of us in the band were kind of fighting back the tears most nights, you know, not just because we were working, which seems like another world at the moment, as we know. I mean, we was just ultra special supporting her with these Eurythmics classics and some of her solo classics. So that was in 2003. We did a tour of North America and Europe, which was my first time going to America.
So was it a headline tour, or?
That was a headline tour.
Yeah.
Of really beautiful old kind of theatres. She kind of purposely kind of chose these beautiful old theatres. So within that tour, we played some amazing places. We played the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, which is a really
famous, yeah.
And the Sadler's Wells Theatre in London, and we played the Apollo in Harlem.
Oh, incredible!
So that was a really, really phenomenal tour with her.
Absolutely, just stuff dreams are made of, isn't it? You know, and the thing
really
is, once you've got those names on your CV, things have to get a little bit easier, don't they, to get more work? Who have you played for? Well, Jeff Beck, Annie Lennox, you know, whoever else. It's
very lucky that I can say those names, and have some, and it does carry weight, even though I never take it for granted that just because I've got a CV of names that I'm just going to work tomorrow every time, because life's not like that. And there's some really great drummers in this world, as you know, and I know, and we're all different, and we've all got our own special thing. I think at times I've been not insecure in my playing because I know my strengths, but you know, there's a lot of people out there, and there's not maybe as many gigs as there is drummers. Do you know what I mean? So I've only ever tried to be, you know, a good person to be around on the road with, you know, telling the same old jokes. If you ask the people I've talked with,
but that's got to be hugely important, hasn't it? That
well, it's a big part, you know, because it's an awful. You spend on, you know, for all the time you spend on stage, you spend way more time traveling on buses and flights and hotels together. So you could be the best musician in the world, but if you haven't got good people skills and an awareness of other people's space and time that they might need on a day off, or it's quite a, there's a lot more to it than just drumming. Let's put it that way.
You can't get up in the morning. That's got to, you know, all adds up, doesn't it?
It does.
Where did you? What happened after Annie Lennox?
Well, fortunately, in 2004, so the year after the tour that we did there, I don't think she was planning on touring, but she got a call from an old friend who happened to be called Sting.
Right.
And so Mike calls me, you know, Mike Stevens calls me and said, Sting's had a call, Annie's had a call from Sting. I said, oh, wow. He said, yeah, he wanted to open as a special guest on his tour in North America. And she said, yes. So we spent summer of 2004 doing 60 shows around North America and Mexico, which was just a really great tour, as I'm sure you are. I'm a huge Sting fan. Keith Carlock was on that tour.
Oh, brilliant.
And he was just an absolute joy to be around. So we did, we opened for Sting for the summer of 2004, which was just the best, mate, you know. You can't ask for more than playing for an hour with Annie Lennox, going down an absolute storm, which he did every night, grabbing a beer, and then running out front to watch Sting, one of your kind of musical heroes.
And getting paid.
Really great, man. And they were all outdoor shows, you know, what the US calls kind of sheds. It's called like the shed tour, but they're not the sheds that me and you think.
No. I got
kind of big. Exactly, they're like big amphitheaters. But that was a great summer, and I got married during that tour to my wife, who I'm still with, and
brilliant.
And married, and Annie came to the wedding. The band and the crew came to the wedding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Las Vegas.
Oh, amazing!
You got to do something on a day off.
Was that planned, or was that just the?
It was planned. Yeah, it was planned. I mean, during rehearsals, I thought that seems like a really good idea. We've got 3 days off in Vegas. Let's get married.
The band and crew rolled up, and Annie. That's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely.
It really was.
Did they play anything?
You know, Annie sang as Annie and the two backing vocalists sang as my wife walked down the aisle.
Oh, really?
Sang Going to the Chapel. You know, the old classic motor.
Yeah.
It was super special. And you know what's amazing? I've just remembered this. I think 5 years earlier, so maybe in 1990, through Andy Wright, the person that I mentioned there about doing the Jeff Beck album with, he'd worked with Annie on some stuff. And I think I'd asked him if it was at all possible to get tickets. And I'd actually gone to Manchester Arena with Mel 5 years before I ended up playing with Annie to go and watch the Rhythmics. And we were kind of there in the audience watching her. And I remember at one point in the show, because we weren't that far from the stage, I thought, I'm sure she just looked at us and gave us a little... And there I was 5 years later playing for her. I just, you know, I don't mean to sound like an old hippie, but I do believe in magic sometimes. And the fact that I was there all those years later, her singing at the wedding was just, you know, special.
That's just showing off that.
I'm sorry.
Amazing. Absolutely brilliant. So then, where did you go from there? What happened after that?
Well, I do remember, I mean, you just talked about you just literally one thing going to another. I did have a bit of a lull.
Right.
Or what I recall being a bit of a kind of, I couldn't land a gig, you know, and so I've been away for an awful long time with Annie.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I don't have a particular timeline on it, but I think I definitely didn't do much for maybe a good sort of 6 to 8 months of something of sort of substance work-wise. But around the middle of 2015, I started playing with Sugar Babes.
Yeah.
again, that came through Mike Stevens. And that was a great 4-year gig I did with them. I did 4 tours with them. And we did shows opening for Take That on Take That's first kind of comeback tour when they played the stadiums in the UK.
It's a nice gig.
It was a really great gig, man. And I like I say, I was there. I was playing for them from 2005 to 2009. And you know, it was a pop gig, you know, but there was some great songwriting with it. And what I realised in the fan from, say, doing Atomic Kitten and the Sugar Babes is basically people might think that a pop thing is a lesser gig because, you know, they might be not held to certain musicians as respectful as other artists. But when you're actually playing those songs and you're sort of taking it to the stage, so to speak, any album arrangements or stuff that's been programmed on the album that's played on the kit becomes a lot more live orientated, organic. And anyway, so those Sugar Babe tours were actually really good, you know, and again, it had a great mixture of styles and, you know, it kept me very busy, you know, for 4 years with them.
So which drum company are you with at this point, Steve?
At that point, I was with Premier.
Right, okay. Because, I mean, kind of, they were still pretty massive at that point. Things were starting on the decline, weren't they, for them, sadly?
Yeah. I was with Premier for a long time. I was with Premier from 2000 till about 2016. So we had a good relationship together and nothing ended badly. It just sort of ran its course for me. But yeah, that's the drum company I was using at that particular time when I was with Sugar Babes and Annie and Jeff Beck and stuff.
Quality stuff. And so now you're with Natal, is that right?
That is right, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Joined Natal in, I think, March of 2016.
Yeah.
Really happy, mate. Phenomenal drums. I've been fortunate enough in the last 4 years to take them on sort of, you know, several tours with Anastacia, who we haven't spoken about yet. But yeah.
Did George approach you or?
George and I are friends.
Yeah, yeah.
So as much as drums and drum companies and the maker of the drums are important, for me, friendships are very important as well. And not just loyal to a person. You've got to like the brand and the company. But it just so happens that I felt at the time, and this is of no kind of disrespect to Premier, because to me, I think they make great drums. It was just I felt that my particular relationship had run its course, you know. But George had gone to Natal. But I think George had already been at Natal for about a year and a half. So it wasn't like George left to Natal and I kind of dived with him immediately. It wasn't. It was a very, very organic, natural thing. And George was incredibly respectful to Premier and was not, you know, doing the whole thing of ringing, you know
all the artists up.
Exactly. So it was a natural thing that just the way I felt things had gone with Premier. And yeah, I went to see George. You know, he's a good friend, and kind of checked the drums out, and they sounded great to me.
They do. I've only heard them. I've never actually laid my hands on one. But everyone I've heard has sounded.
Well, it's one thing to be fortunate enough to sort of play the kit, you know, down there at Marshall to sort of check the drums out. But the real test is taking them out on the road, which I have done over the last 4 years, and they've travelled great. You know what I mean? And I've had nothing but great compliments from the front of house sound engineers that we've had. Just so sort of happy with how they've responded, you know what I mean, through the PA and kind of driven the band, and yeah, they're really well made.
No, it's great, beautiful things. So you mentioned Anastacia.
Yes.
How did that gig come about?
So that came about in 2009, again through Mike.
Yeah, brilliant.
God bless him, you know. Again, like a lot of gigs can just have their run their course. You've done nothing wrong. It's just bands or like the production or the show director just may want to freshen things up. No one's played anything wrong, but they may want, it's obvious just by default, by adding a new band, you're going to get a different thing. So I think that the Sugar Babe band was going through a transitional period, and just so happens at that time that Mike had another call. You know, he got many calls for different artists all the time. You have to just look at his CV; it's ridiculous. But
will do.
He got a call from Anastacia's management about putting a band together for her, and he called me for that. So that gig is actually playing for her, which is been amazing in so many ways. I've actually been with her the longest, I think, of any artist that I've actually toured with.
Oh, really?
Well, I've been with her since 2009.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're now in 2020, and I still play for her now. You know, only earlier this year we were in New Zealand in January of this year, which seems like a lifetime ago. But we went to New Zealand in January and played these festivals out there, which was phenomenal. Again, I played with her in February in Vienna. But yeah, so I've been with her since 2009, and she's a real tour de force, a real powerhouse of a singer. You know, she's got it all going on with the rock thing and the pop and soul thing, and
she can really belt it out, can't she? She
really
takes no prisoners. Stuff I've seen.
And she's been really loyal. Yeah. You know, I'm really grateful. Again, you know, no one has to stick with the same musicians, and there has been some changes within the band dynamic over the years. But she's very kindly stuck with me and Orifo Awakwe, who's the bass player and tour MD. And me and him did all the Sugar Babes together. So I've been working with that guy for a long time. And me and him, I think, sound great together. You know, we really complement each other on those particular gigs. Yeah. And I've been with her since 2009. And we've been, you know, been to a lot of places. We've been to Australia and, as I said, New Zealand and Russia and all around Europe. And I was fortunate 4 years ago to play on her last studio album.
Brilliant. Right.
In Stockholm, which is a great opportunity. And yeah, she's a great artist, man. And like I say, there's a lot of great hits to play. And she's old school. She loves live music and she loves to tour. So as a musician that plays for her, you can't ask for a better gig than somebody who likes to kind of travel and tour, really. You know.
And is she still packing them in? Still getting?
She is, yeah. We've done various kind of sizes over the years. You know, we've done really, you know, some sort of big kind of theatre tours or kind of more sort of summer festival tours. Yeah. But there's such a big and long back catalogue of hits that the fans don't go away because they, you know, like great songs don't kind of die, you know. So, and if the voice is still there, which it completely is, and the band's got it, people keep showing out to see. She's got a really loyal fan base, you know. So,
am I allowed to ask how old is Anastacia? Because I don't think she looks her age. Does she?
93. I'm joking. No, sorry, that's me. I don't, off the top of my head, I'm gonna guess. I think 52.
Right. Okay. Probably best.
I think it's around that. I really hope I've not gone too high.
It would make.
I'm going to edit this.
It would make.
I think around 52 because she's very listen, she's a very, very transparent, honest woman. She's been through an awful lot health-wise, and she's beat cancer twice. You know, I mean, she's been through an awful lot. She's very strong, but also very, very transparent with her fans. You know, and I'm sure she's put her age out there because she should be proud of it. She looks amazing.
She does. It must be a fun gig.
Standing next door to me. Maybe that's why I kept the gig.
It must be a fun gig to do.
No, it is, mate, because it's got a lot of the elements that I feel that I'm, as a drummer, sort of strongest at. You know, I consider myself a song drummer, which I don't think is an undersell.
No,
but I think she absorbs kind of rock and funk and soul and really great, big, lush, powerful ballads. You know, that we can all get our teeth stuck into, and yeah, so it's a great gig to play. It's a great band.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky to do that.
Just need to get back to it now.
Mate, we do. I miss it. You know, I mean, it's made no bones about it. This has been and is a tough time for lots of musicians and drummers.
Absolutely.
And touring personnel. You know, I mean, I feel, you know, obviously selfishly feel for myself in this situation, but there's a much bigger picture going on where thousands of people are affected by this crisis that we're in. But I do believe, sincerely believe, that the power of live music will never go away. And with all the technologies in the world that we have at our disposal, you know, chatting to you here, you know, or downloading and watching phenomenal kind of concerts that are filmed in HD and stuff, but we'll never replicate, you know, a live concert experience of being in a room. It may evolve.
Yeah.
Power, exactly. it may evolve to something that we don't yet know what it's going to be. I don't know. But I'd love to get back in that room with those thousands of people screaming their favourite songs and crying because they can't believe that their artist is there in front of them. And yeah, well, I miss it, mate. But I do believe it's going to return. It's just a matter of when it's safe and right, I guess, for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you managed to pick up a stick or anything since March? Have you done anything at all, Steve?
I've just kept my hand in.
Yeah.
You know, but I haven't had any work. I'm not going to say I have, because I'd be lying, and I don't need to lie. No. Because I feel better about being honest with your kind of fan.
Absolutely. I think there's a few in the same boat. I've spoken to a few on the interviews, and they said, "Well, I haven't picked a stick up since March." It's simple as that.
Yeah. You know? I definitely had a period where I wasn't playing at all.
Yeah.
But I've done that before in my career where I've had work lots. I am, by my own admission, hands up, I'm not a guy who's doing daily kind of rudiments and stuff. I've never been like that. I feel much better, and as I'm sure we all do, playing with other people and being in a room. And I recognise my drumming responds well to being around other people. And I'm not saying it doesn't sound good on its own, but I just definitely feel more comfortable in that environment. So yeah, so I definitely had a few months of not playing, you know, but you know, you've got to keep your hand in.
Yeah, I think you learn how to be a musician with other people. You don't learn that with I've got practice pads here, and you don't learn that on one of those.
No.
You know, you don't listen the same, and I genuinely believe you need to be playing with other people.
Yeah. It's a very organic call and response thing, and it takes a lot for us drummers to sit there in the middle of the kind of the band and kind of watching everything in front of you. There's a lot of weight and importance on what we do, you know, and kind of reading the band and reading the dynamic on stage. And
yeah, absolutely.
I've worked hard in my career to try and do that and try and listen. I don't think I'm the best drummer in the world, but I think I've sort of supported and given a great solidity and energy to the artists that I've worked with, and I'm very proud of that.
You've earned your place. You've definitely earned your place there.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
No, it's well, hey, the proof of the pudding and all that. And I have to ask, one of my favourite bands is Mike and the Mechanics. Now, I know you've had spells with them as well.
Yeah.
Now, that's, for me, that's like, yeah, that's a great gig.
Yeah.
You might run.
Again, I mean, if you just rewind a bit back to what I was saying at the start of this interview, my first ever concert was Genesis.
Yeah.
So for me, that was kind of full circle to end up in a position where I was on stage with Mike Rutherford, you know. And yeah, that came about in 2016, or was it 17? God. 16. Yeah, 2016. 17. 2017. And basically, you know, Mike has had, he's had the same drummer for like 25, 30 years, a guy called Gary Wallace, who I'm sure you know.
Yes, absolutely.
Gary's a phenomenal percussionist and drummer, who I saw many years ago.
Oh, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, with Nick Mason, yeah.
Yeah, I saw him. Again, my dad took me to see Pink Floyd, and Gary was on drums with them, you know, or sort of was on percussion doing that. Yeah. And I saw Gary with Nick Kershaw.
Yeah.
You know, so I've been aware of
Gary with Paul Carrack, actually, a long time ago.
Right, okay.
Yeah, great. Pino Palladino and Tim Rennick on guitar, I believe, as well. So
wow, what a band.
Yeah.
So, cut a long story short, Gary kind of came to, Gary was at an Anastacia show, and kind of through a mutual friend, I kind of heard that that Mike was looking for a drummer to dep Gary, because like I said, Gary's been and is the drummer of Mike and the Mechanics, but Gary also plays, I believe, with Tom Jones, and there was a clash of tours. So yeah, so I got asked. Gary saw me that night in London playing with Anastacia, and just and put me up, and it wasn't an audition for. It was just I guess he kind of said to Mike Rutherford that I could do the job, and yeah, so we went out on tour. I think in the September of 2017. Yeah,
that must have been fun.
Great.
Some great songs.
Great songs. Andrew Roachford.
Oh, great voice. Yeah.
Great voice. You know, and playing Cuddly Toy, just a classic tune. Tim Hammer, another fantastic singer who's in there, and a great band. And but that was ultra special for me. You know, to I'll be honest with you, even for the stuff I've shared with you here, about the stuff I've done, you may think, or your audience might think, that I would just be like, oh, it's another gig at school. But I was really in awe of kind of Mike, and I had to suppress the fan in me and not ask every question about Genesis, because to this day I'm a fan of Genesis. It's an awfully special band to me, you know. So, but I sort of found my comfort zone within the band after a few weeks, and it's a great play. As you know, the songs are great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was another great thing that I was able to do.
Amazing. I mean, you know, you've done everything really musical wise. I mean, you've gone from one extreme to the other, almost, starting off with Bullyrag, which is probably the heaviest thing, I guess.
It will be, yeah.
Right through to some of the pop stuff. What are your thoughts on clinics and things? Have you done any of those? Have you
Petrified.
I can imagine. I would. Nobody would come and see it if I was doing it. I can imagine it being.
You know, it's weird for the thousands of people that I have been on stage, you know, in front of. You know, I mean, so that's one thing, being there as a cohesive kind of band and supporting an artist. I'm not nervous in that context, but I think a clinic thing has got a different mindset. And I mean, never say never. I mean, I have done the odd little thing, but I've never sort of put myself in that kind of into that world, because I think there's other people out there that do it really well.
Yeah.
But I guess never say never.
I always think, I personally don't think drum clinics should be, you know, just chop fest. I mean, a little bit of that's fine, but I think people want to hear what you do and talk about experience. You know, that's a good drum clinic for me. But I know, now, if I've got this wrong, I apologise. But did you do one of the world's greatest drummers with Ian? Ian's a good friend of mine, and I still remember your name on the poster. That did happen then. It
did happen, and I did say It was another one of those looking at your phone going, "Have you made the right kind of call?" But I did that. I think that was in 2011.
Right. Okay.
And I couldn't. I mean, again, that kind of put the fear of God into me because of the title alone. But I was and I'm a big Buddy Rich fan. I saw Buddy Rich in 80 or 81 at the Theatre Royal in Norwich about 2 years before he died, and it was phenomenal to see, you know, him at that age, you know. But yeah, I knew it would be petrifying for me because it was way out of my comfort zone. But I really respected Ian for calling me and giving me the opportunity, and I thought, I'm going to have to say yes, because this may never come round again. Something like this, having the power of a great band, and as you know, Pete Cator, his band there, they were phenomenal.
Yeah, indeed.
As is Pete, you know, Pete owns that stuff. He lives and breathes.
He's the boss of that. Yeah, totally.
But I really enjoyed it, and I did it, and I played a couple of songs. I can't remember the titles I picked, but they weren't drum solo kind of tracks. They were kind of, because Buddy had a great groove to him as well, apart from being a really strong sort of swing and sort of jazz drummer. He had a great sort of funky kind of vibe to him. So I picked a couple of great little funk kind of sort of tracks, you know, and it was great. So yeah, you did read right. That was my name. It was me. There was all the Steves on that. There was Steve White, Steve Smith, and then Steve Barney, and then the great drummer who plays for Primal Scream.
Darren
Mooney.
Darren Mooney. Yeah.
So it was a great lineup. Yeah.
So
Pete Ray Biggin is an absolute monster.
Yes, absolutely. So
it was
a lineup that.
It was a great lineup. Yeah.
That must have been a great buzz about a day like that, though. You know.
It was. And literally, I mean, I really wish we'd had a really good kind of visual audio recording of that, because we didn't, you know. But maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. No. Hey, I'm sure you did a fine job. No, it's these things are great for the man on the street like myself to go and see, you know, and it's kind of a lot of drummers, it'll be out of their comfort zone playing with you know, a big band. As you said, you pick the tracks that aren't perhaps standard big band tracks, but you know, how did you get on with that reading? Did you just get the recordings in advance for something like that, or do you just?
I did what I do with all the gigs I've got. So I learn things from basically just getting like an MP3 and just kind of learning it from that. I do write kind of charts out, but they're not traditional charts, if you know what I mean. I write kind of bar charts, and say if there's a fill that kind of a particular fill, I may even write a word that sounds like the fill, because I know what it means, you know. And I would say that while I do definitely encourage people to read, I have been involved in gigs with an orchestra as well, all the big bands, where I've been playing with readers, and the end result is unified. So as long as you can get to the same point and you're playing cohesively with each other, you don't have to be a reader. But I couldn't cold walk in onto a gig and read, because I'm just not that guy, you know. But
and I think if you've got the tune in your head, you know the geography of it, you know where it's going. I think you can perhaps offer a little bit more musically if you're not reading a piece of paper.
Maybe. I can't say, because I've never been the other type of drummer. But once I'm on a gig, I'm not reading anything. I've kind of got it in my head, you know. By the time I've kind of absorbed, you know, the stuff. So, but we did a thing going back a bit in 2009 with Mike, because Donovan Hepburn, who plays for Take That and ELO, he was out on another tour, and Mike Stevens was doing Children in Need Rocks. It was at the Royal Albert Hall, and Donovan was, like I said, on another tour, so I got a call to cover him on that, and that was a great gig, and that was with the it was basically Mike Stevens, was basically Take That band, with the addition of the BBC Concert Orchestra, I believe. So we had a great night there. I got to play with Shirley Bassey that night.
Fantastic.
Playing you know, Diamonds Are Forever, which was amazing.
Dear me. Well, you know, you've had, and I say, you know, you're a young man relatively. How old are you, Steve?
I'm 49.
49. Well, yeah, you've got a couple of years on me, but you know, so far you've done so much in a relatively short amount of time, haven't you? You know.
I guess I have. Yeah, considering, you know, looking back.
Are you happier being a sideman now rather than being in a band? Would you change that? You'd never.
I wouldn't change that for the world. I wouldn't change the fact that I was in Bullyrag either, because that really was an important time in my life, and a great band. And I look back on the music fondly. But I do not. I know. I love being a supportive sideman for stuff. You know, it's given me a lot of joy. It's given me a lot of freedom to work for myself, and also because of the varied amount of artists and styles that I've done, then it's given me a lot of width of music styles, you know, musical styles, and it's led me to travel, you know, to lots of places. You know, only last year I went to Japan for the first time, you know, and hence the hat.
Oh yeah, of course.
With a great artist called Hote that we haven't spoken about, but
yes.
So I've been, you know, to be out there last year. I spent 3.5 months in Tokyo, and then traveling around Japan, supporting a singer, you know, playing music with a guy that kind of sings predominantly in Japanese. He's a massive star out there.
Right.
And it's the great thing of communication, of music that communicates in every language. And I've been so lucky to sort of be a part of different artists' kind of journeys, I guess, you know.
I mean, who knows what's to come over the next 20 years or something, you know, it's...
Who knows, but it's going to be exciting, because the power of music and songs is so big that it will never go away. It'll just evolve like life does, you know. So.
Well, before we go, I want to ask, what advice would you give to the young drummer just you know, finishing college, wanting to go and basically do what you've done? What would you suggest? What would help?
I would suggest, when we can all get out and play again, and it's safe to go out there. For me, as much, because it is a different time to when I was kind of practicing a lot and getting ready to go out there and give my career a go. But so for me, I would say, while it is great to practice at home and spend an awful lot of time fine-tuning your individual thing, that I think the more people you can play with, the better, because there's something to be learned from playing in a room with other people and responding and listening to other people. And while the physical act of drumming and playing the drums is very, very important, for me, it's very, very important to listen as well to what's going on around you and responding accordingly to the musicians that you happen to be with in every different situation. So if you're in a rock gig on a Monday night in a pub, you're going to play in one particular way. If you're doing like a soul review, James Brown type thing, if you're into that, that's going to take a different discipline. So I think in a nutshell, I think it's really important to listen and to be open, not to criticism. Well, yeah, to be open to criticism and don't be too guarded of what people want of you.
Yeah.
And then just, again, it's a kind of a cliche because lots of people say it, but it's important that to try and be a decent person to be around, because as we said before in this interview, you can spend an awful lot of time, traveling with people, and there's no music involved at that point. So it's about, being an understanding person. So, and just, I believe, people's goals shouldn't be about endorsements and about likes and follows on. I know it's a different world with sort of social media, but I think ultimately the goal is just enjoy yourself. And if you, I believe if you genuinely, purely love your drumming art and music, that it will carry you forward for all of your life, if you're lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that sounds like good advice to me. Look, Steve, thank you so much for giving your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Mate, you're welcome. Thank you for asking me,
Oh, hey, my
What else am I doing?
Do you know what? You'd be amazed how many drummers have said that. Well, you've picked the right time to do this. There's nothing else happening.
Everyone's at home.
Yeah. So, well, let's hope it, things get back to normal, as normal as it will be soon. And
yeah, definitely.
You get back. Have you got lots of things planned for hopefully the future? Has Anastacia got things in for next year?
I'm keeping in touch with all the artists that have been. I say all the artists. Predominantly Anastacia is my main gig, as we know. So again, her and her management, will respond accordingly, as and when it's kind of safe and right to kind of go back on and kind of put tours on. I think we can all see there's tours being advertised for next year. This year was postponed, as far as I was concerned and what I was about to do. I was about to do, we were going to do a winter tour with Anastacia in sort of September time, October, November, and obviously that's been postponed. I was doing a tour in December with a French project called Era, and that's been postponed. But I think all of these things will just get, if we're all lucky enough, we'll get shifted to next year, so.
Hopefully not all at the same time as well.
Hopefully not. Hopefully it'll be one of them perfect diaries that fits together.
That'd be nice. Look, thanks again, Steve. I really, really appreciate it, mate. So
my pleasure, and thank you.
Thank you, mate. See you soon. Bye-bye.